All right, let's get started, everybody. It is 1:30. We've got 25 minutes. Let's get started as we typically do. Alejandro, what is the GC Realty experience? Alejandro, you're muted.
Oh, I'm so sorry. The GC Realty experience? Well, it's 3 pillars: the right customer solution, ease of doing business, and remarkable customer service.
Awesome. Michelle, what are GC's core values?
Oh, responsive, own it, whatever it takes, and better results.
All right. Thank you, guys. I think it's really key for today to kick off with talking about that is that's going to be a big part of what we're discussing today. I had gone back and looked at a couple different documents and ideas that Cliff had shared. They're both in Notion. One is about the difference between property management and maintenance, and then the other is about the property management or the GC Realty and development business model. And I looked at these two documents, and I wanted to talk with the team today just to make sure that everybody understands them and try to break them down to their simplest parts. I think that there was a lot to read here.
Probably going to be
yeah, but the goal is like.
And you know, when I looked at both documents, I think that they really tie in together really well. And to get started, you know, talking about the GC Realty experience, Alejandro and Michelle covered what those are. You know, we talk about them every Friday on the Friday 25. But you know, what it really comes down to with what we're doing from day to day is, you know, we're ensuring timely, responsible, and exceptional service to clients, to residents, to team members, and fostering continuous improvement and trust. When we break down the difference between property management and maintenance, I think there's some really key aspects to that. But I don't want to review it. I really want to talk about it as a team, to just make sure everybody's on the same page about, you know, what is the difference between property management and maintenance. So Kyle Hanley, you know, you've been working with the property management team for quite a while. When you think about the property management department and what we do and our goal, how would you describe it just at a high level?
I mean, for me, it's, you know, you're providing a service. You know, this is the resident's home. It's not their personal asset. It's the landlord, so our clients. So we take care of not only servicing the resident, but we service the client who owns the property. And at the end of the day, they're in it to try to make some money. The tenant wants a roof over their head, and we need to take care of them. They rely on us when things go wrong, and they want us to help fix them. So when you talk about the maintenance side of things and where that plays into it, things break. And it's a world we live in. Unfortunately, things don't last forever. So just knowing and be able to explain that to a client, know that, you know, you have the tenant's back at the end of the day. It's just providing that value to them. You know, they hire us for typical reasons when it comes to this stuff. You know, they don't, one, know what they're doing. One, they don't have the time. And they just rely on our expertise, our resources to be able to take care of this so that they know that their tenants are being taken care of. So there's just, I mean, that's just a touch on it. Of course, there's so much that goes into it as well. But I just find it, I mean, it's a service business. That's what it comes down to.
So you mentioned time. I think that's super important. Somebody's going to hire GC Realty to manage their property. We're going to save them a ton of time, a ton of effort, and you know, we want to make sure that they're making money. Aside from, you know, saving them time and effort, how are we helping them to get a return on their investment?
I mean, doing it right the first time. That's one of our experiences. Like, you know, they don't want to be going back there multiple times to figure this stuff out, and in return spending more money on that stuff. So knowing what to do when we go out there, knowing what to do when we take care of the tenant, knowing the laws of the cities, things like that, you know, that's their time that they don't have to worry about figuring out. We already have systems in place for that stuff. That's what they're paying us for.
And then thanks, Kyle. With Lauren, so we don't have the maintenance department isn't on the Friday 25, but what do you feel like the biggest difference is between property management and maintenance? You know, Kyle talked about the the property management department, how would you explain the maintenance department and how it might be different than what we do in property management?
I think our maintenance, well, first, our property management team, our goal, our focus is to serve our clients the best we can and make sure that we're being the expert, we're doing what's right for them, what's right for the property, what's right for the residents. And well, by extension, that also might be the end goal for the maintenance team. They're not looking at that at the same level that we are. So we really need to look at maintenance as just our vendor. They're providing us a service, and that's to give us estimates, to give us quotes for work, to get work done. And it's our responsibility to make sure they're doing what is in the best interest of the clients and the residents.
I think that's really well said. You know, there was an example in the difference between PM and maintenance, and what was shared with all of us was this idea of, you know, if I have an appliance that needs repaired, and I have a 30-year-old dishwasher, and I tell the vendor, hey, can you repair this? And they repair it, and then it breaks down again. If I would go back to the vendor and say, hey, why did you repair this? You know, it's 30 years old. Can you talk about like that idea with the team and kind of use that as an example to explain the responsibility that we have with the client, that we own those decisions, that we are taking the work order from the very start and just making sure it has all the information that we need, that everything is really clear, and we are making that decision. We are owning it with the client and talking about the outcome with the client.
Yeah, I think it starts from the beginning. Like as soon as we get a work order in, we need to make sure that we're telling maintenance exactly what we want to be done. Because in that case, that example, if we told them to repair the stove, they're going to go repair the stove. Their best interests or their main goal is not to make sure the act is in the best interest of the client. That's our job. So we just have to be very specific with maintenance, our vendor, so that we're acting in the best interest of the client. And then on the flip side, when we're talking to the client, we need to be advising them on what the best decision is, because repairing it may be cheaper right now, but when it breaks again in 6 months, you're ultimately going to have to replace it anyway. And then that first repair would just be wasted money.
Absolutely. So when it comes to the primary caretakers of the properties, is it property management or maintenance?
Property management for sure.
Why would that be?
Because they have, I look at maintenance as more just like a task oriented. We're giving them work orders, we're giving them these tasks to complete. But the overall like ownership of the property, making sure it's being maintained well, making sure the maintenance is getting done that needs to get done is really our job. And we may lean on them to be our eyes and ears because they're at the property. But if I need to verify something, if I need to know something about the property, I need to make sure we as a team are getting those answers from maintenance. We have to hold them accountable to make sure we're taking care of the property.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything that you said there sounds like proactive engagement, where we are saying, this is what needs done. We know exactly what needs done, but we can't do it ourselves. We need this vendor to go out there and do it. And, you know, it kind of mentions how the maintenance department should be looked at as a third-party vendor, where we're just saying, hey, this is what needs done, and then they're going to go out there and execute. But as far as the ownership of the outcome, the communication with the client, that all belongs with property management. So I think that that's really important for the team to know. You know, thinking about the Friday 25 today, I really wanted to try and combine like the difference between property management and try to make it really clear at a high level. And I think that you and Kyle did a really good job to help illustrate some of those points. You know, the other piece of information was the business model, and you know, how does GC's maintenance department make money? And there's a section in there that talks about kind of the basic idea of, you know, understanding what market price is for repairs. And in general, we're going to provide at or below market pricing to our clients. And that is what allows us to create a profit margin. In other words, we have the vendors. I've seen before where, you know, we need somebody in emergency, Bill makes one phone call. These are people that we've been working with for years that are delivering great pricing, and having that is what allows us to create a profit margin. Kyle, can you talk about an experience with a vendor where you had to have a conversation with a client where you needed to explain cost, and basically there's kind of two ideas. There's the idea that you're delivering at or below market pricing, and then there's the secondary idea of the value that we add with the service that we're providing. Because remember, at the beginning, we talked about, you know, you're saving the client time and effort. They kind of don't even need to think about it. They can just rely on GC and we're going to take care of it. But what are some of those things where you are providing the value as the property manager throughout that maintenance process to kind of explain, like, well, if there is a profit margin, GC Realty is doing all of these things to help the client. What would some of those things be?
Yeah, I mean, to speak on kind of like an example, like plumbing. Plumbing's a hard job. It's a specialty type of work that you get out there, you know. And an example, and I was working with a client a couple of weeks ago, you know, there's a crack with the sewer. And this is in a crawl space, not a basement. You can't walk down there. And explaining that to the client, you know, and they ask, why is it so much? Well, because do you want to crawl in there and figure out how much piping you want to repair, or you want to talk to the tenant and explain them why they can't use their toilet, stuff like that? That's all the value where our team comes into place. We understand what's going on. Maybe we get a competitive bid to understand what's happening full scope. I called the vendor and talked to him. It was like, hey, so what's going on? What's the details about this job to understand, you know, what's happening here? Painting that picture for me so that I can explain to the client what's all involved and what's entailed of that job, so that he understands, like, oh man, if I had to do that on my own, how long would that take me? And I'd have to call up 5 different people to figure out how to get this thing solved. What's the materials involved for that kind of work? You know, people don't understand that part of it. And for them to be able to pay us, and that's where our value added comes into all these jobs. You know, just talking with vendors, getting multiple bids, having that resource, like I said earlier, of that network of vendors that we have to work from. That's all that, when you talk about margin and, you know, the pricing for our stuff, you know, it's an awesome ability to go to a property management company that has a full service like we do, and not have to worry about that, knowing that the company's got your back on every aspect of, you know, leasing, rental license, maintenance, all that encompassing. They don't have to do anything. They just have to, you know, cooperate with us, and we'll keep them informed of what's going on.
Absolutely. I think digging into that value add and just talking about that really quickly. It sounds like you're talking about GC is finding the vendor. So we're finding a vendor that we have been connected with for quite a while, reputable vendors that have insurance that are going to do really good work. So we're finding the vendor. You said we're getting quotes. So we're comparing quotes to get the best possible solution for the client. We would be coordinating the vendor to visit the property so that the client doesn't have to pick up the phone. They don't have to think about it. We're doing that. And then the actual work, we're monitoring the quality of that. We're getting photos for every work order. The property management team is reviewing all those. The maintenance department is getting all those. And then we're choosing and making sure that we understand the correct solution. We're finding the right solution for the problem, and we're doing all the thinking around that. And then the last part, Gabe, I was hoping you could help talk about this a little bit. I think that there's also a part where we have accountability with the vendor. Meaning, if our vendor goes out there and something breaks down or goes wrong, we're going to send them back. There's going to be a recall, and I think that's a great big value add, because if somebody finds somebody to do something cheaper, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be able to go back. You might ask them to go back, and they'll say no way. Gabe, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, a funny thing just came up. So in Berkeley, we're doing a fire sprinkler inspection, and it's kind of holding up the close. So we had our plumber go out. He hooked up the sprinklers the way that the village wanted him to do it. And come to find out that compromised the system. It's not getting enough pressure. But because we have that relationship with him, we can call him up and say, hey, dude, like, we need you to do this huge change on this system. And we need it like early next week because this building's trying to close. And because we have that relationship, he's like, I'm going to go out tonight. I'm going to have something for you as soon as possible. Like, these are all the things you got to look out for to get this done. And this is where I need your help. And because we have those relationships with these vendors, we can capitalize that and become more efficient and just give our clients a better level of service.
Absolutely. I know that we've talked about a lot so far with kind of the difference between property management and maintenance, how the maintenance department makes money, the value add that we're bringing to our clients. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we've talked about so far, or any comments?
I have a little comment, not to derail anything, but it was mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that maintenance, we have to be very clear what we want from them, right? Because we need to treat them like a vendor, right? They're going to do, if you say just repair it, they're only going to repair it even if it's obvious it needs to be replaced, right? So would it be beneficial for us or for our maintenance team to start looking more at the competence versus compliance part, which it's so emphasized for the PM team? Like, you should have noticed this, you should have done this differently, would have saved us money, versus them just being compliant like any other vendor.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Because there's always the emphasis, like, yeah, treat them like a vendor, but in reality, they're not really a vendor. They're part of the company, right? So that's why it's harder to hold them accountable like you would any other vendor. That's my
So what happens in this situation when you feel there's a moment they should be accountable for something they did or didn't do? How do you handle those situations?
Well, you report it to your manager that they because yeah, I'm not gonna go over there and hold somebody from a different department accountable, right? That's their manager's job. So just escalate it up the chain to see where the conversation needs to be happening, to see if it's a widespread issue or just a one-off, or to see if it's an issue at all, right?
I think that example is maybe not the best one, because if we get photos, we know the age of the appliance. It's pretty like easy to make that determination. But I think the importance of Natalia's job right now, work order approvals, is a lot of times we don't know what the root of the issue is, and we are relying on them to give us their best recommendation for what needs to be done. But there is also, like, when we're approving the work order and pushing it over to them, if that's what we need, then we're telling them that's what we need. We want your recommendation here as to what the best outcome is for the owner.
That's I was gonna say that that's one sample, but I think I can't be the only one thinking this right now. And but I will say it is, what happens when we're not at market price? How are you handling those situations? You guys all come across that. I know we've had some micro teams that have been talking about those things. What do we do?
Well, I feel like it could be hard sometimes because it's, especially with things like escort work orders, and we charge like $80 an hour. And I've had clients personally be like, oh, well, why'd you spend $300 just for this person to sit around and wait for an inspector to show up? And I mean, it's very clear the way we kind of break it down an hourly rate. It's like, we just have to, wait for people to show up. Sometimes that's the reality. But then it's hard when people are like, well, I can, pay anyone off the street $50 to do this. So it's hard with those ones where it is quite expensive for, like, you're not getting a ton out of it, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of explaining like the cost of doing business and everything that they're hiring us for at the end of the day.
How much should we charge for escort work orders?
Is it $60 an hour?
I don't know. I want to make sure I know.
Well, I
It's
think
supposed to
they
be less
recently
than the.
changed it to like block times too. So like I don't know what all the updates are with that.
Yeah,
It's $60 an
It
hour,
is.
and if we're scheduled for 4 hours, we're charging for the full 4 hours, even if the tech was done and left early.
Cool. Do you guys think that's right?
I don't think there's if it's a right or wrong thing. It's just how are you selling it to the clients, right? Do they see the value of that, or is there? Yeah, can we explain it, right? Justify it as a benefit to them, or
I mean,
ease
I
of doing business?
understand, why it's happening. Like, if we schedule for 4 hours and it takes them an hour to do it, it's like, well, that tech was blocked off for that amount of time, and he may not have time to, do things after that. I know that that's, the reason, but obviously we wouldn't tell the owners like all of the in-depths of that they weren't actually at the property for that long. But I mean, those are the things I think personally that make it a little bit more difficult to explain.
Yeah, to me, I think it's the simple idea that you can't guarantee the time. And that's the reason why you need to do the block. I think that sometimes, like if we have, like personal appointments for things, places have policies about like, we block this time, and if you don't let us know in a reasonable amount of time, we're going to charge you whether you're there or not. And I think what it comes down to is you just can't guarantee what the time frame is going to be. We can't offer that service. I mean, it's not really possible to do that because you can't predict what it's going to be.
I just want to jump in briefly. So first of all, I think it's good that you guys have the feeling of like, this is unfair, yada, 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 yada. Like all of that stuff means that you care about what the client has to say. So you're hearing them when they give you pushback on pricing, like you're trying to do what's right for them. So then it makes you think like I'm mad at maintenance. I think that there's really two sides to the conversation. There is, can I present this and sell this to the owner because this is something that I believe in? And that might be the difference in, something that costs $300 or something that we're charging $330 for. Like it's fairly easy to present and make them understand the value that we provide for that difference in pricing compared to what they can call a guy for. I think a lot of you guys, it seems like there's a problem where there's an egregious difference in the price point, where it's like the owner is saying, well, this only costs $120. I just cost 3 vendors. And I think that's the time where you need to either escalate it, give pushback. And I know you guys give pushback to maintenance and they don't seem to care, but it's like something has to be done if there is actually an egregious difference in price. Because and I know that a lot of you guys feel this way about the maintenance team. So I want you to speak up and so that we can understand how to either make it right or make the presentation better. You know what I mean?
I am an outsider, not in property management or maintenance, in management or maintenance, but I see tags and I hear things when I'm in the office, and it always makes me wonder. I'll hear like, well, that's the price. Is that before our markup? Is that after our markup? And it's like, what markup are we talking about if we're not marking anything up? So I just don't know how it all works. We're told that the discount comes from the vendor, and then when we add in our margin, we're market rate. But is that actually true? That I don't know. I'm not in maintenance or property management, but I always wondered that because I see even tags that say, is this before our markup? And I'm like, what markup?
Yeah, we talked about it. I brought that up. I put that on the issues list for our leadership team where words mean things. And when maintenance sits there says, hey, that includes our markup. When somebody starts new next week and they read that, what's their first impression? We do markups, right? And I'm sure some of you guys have even, it's probably been going on so long that that's probably how some of you guys came into the industry with that, and no one stopped it on that side. So we're talking to them, whenever I think it was Melissa's takeaway to work with Brian and talk with all of them, and like this is the business over there. Like it's not like we don't mark up the text. We have pricing, and they go out there, and we've built in a profit profit, and it's not always profits, it's risk too. We got to make a little money just in case to offset some of the risk. So what I was getting at before though is when you guys see things that are off, we have to just make sure we understand how to do it. You use a couple words, escalate, tell your manager, but what is it? Is it, I brought up yesterday in the meeting with a few of you guys, like there's a vendor page. If Jonathan goes out there and takes 6 hours to do something, and you could push it back on that, but file the vendor complaint. If we used the example yesterday, we do not have a good chimney person. we should not accept $450 to clean chimneys. In the meantime, if we have to not make any money on those chimney repairs till someone until their side goes and finds a vendor that will work with us, that we can make our money from the vendor, like you guys are going to continue to have that pushback on that. So, but we're not getting it to the right people to make those solutions. So make sure we have that system for what we're doing when we come across these. It's really easy to solve a problem because I got to get this done. And then by the time the next level 10 meeting happens, like you forgot, you had 17 other problems before then. But all those should have probably been on the headlines or leadership on the issues list. So you guys are so crucial in helping us, come together in these groups and figure out how we can break down some of these things. We had some great topics yesterday in our meeting that we had that kind of opened our eyes to like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense of why they feel that way. And maybe this is what we can do over here. So
definitely some good questions today about, I think if you guys look at the business model example in Notion, specifically around the examples that Cliff provides, you'll see that there's a difference between a flat markup and then the next column is the GC model. And I think the best way to look at it is there's a difference between markup and margin. And I think with GC, we're talking about margins, not markups. And margin basically depends on the market. So like if market price is $10 for something and we're getting charged $20, there could be an 80% margin for GC. So it depends on where it is compared to market pricing as far as like how much money we make. So do we mark up work orders? No. Are we getting is there a margin for the value that we add and stuff like that? Absolutely, there is. But there's a difference between those two things. And I think what's in Notion explains it really well with the 3 different examples of like the market price of the repair, what we bill to the client and what the profit is for GC. It talks about the profit margin. So the difference between markup and margin, I think, is the important thing in understanding it. I think if you look at what's in Notion, it lays it out really well.
And I think if you use that, if you can understand that part of it really well, then that can be the basis for your conversation with maintenance, not just, hey, the owner's pissed, you need to bring this down, or fuck you, make sure that price is better. I'm not sending that to the client. The point is, if you can, with good confidence, say, hey, I just called 3 different people, this is way over, and this is definitely not a margin, you're just flat putting 25% on top, then it's a different kind of conversation. So I think that's a powerful business model to, I don't want to say throw back in their face, but that's really, it should be the basis of the conversation.
I know that we're a little bit over for our Friday 25. The PM department is really focused on how we can deliver great value to our clients on the phone when we're presenting scopes and pricing and needing approval. And Shay and Mark have been super helpful in having meetings and role plays around how we're doing this. And we really want to continue to improve. And I think having the team understand the property management's responsibility, different than maintenance, and how we're 2 different entities and how it all works together is super important. So that was kind of the goal of today's call. And, if anybody has any questions, please ask. But before we go, is there anything, Mark, that you want to add or any last thoughts?
No. I have one more thing. I'm sorry. I had too much caffeine this afternoon. People buy because of 2 reasons. They buy because of need and convenience. So if they no longer need us or it's no longer convenient to work with us, then there's not really any reason for them to stick around. I think that's something that's important to keep in mind. And then the second thing is when somebody goes to the hardware store, they're not buying a 1/4-inch drill bit. They're buying a 1/4-inch hole. They're buying the solution of the problem, not the actual thing. If you can solve their problem conveniently, then they're going to stick around. I promise you.
All right. Thank you, Shay. Hope everybody has an awesome weekend enjoying this beautiful weather if you're in Chicago. If not, I hope it's nice where you're at. Thank you, everybody.
All right, Eduardo, we'll see you. Eduardo's going to be gone for 5 weeks right now. So Eduardo, have fun, safe, handle what you got to handle. So just want to say.
We'll miss you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. I'll be back. So don't listen too much, but I appreciate
You better
be
be
Eduardo.
I promise.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.